Welcome to the BuiltOnAir podcast, the variety show for all things Airtable. In each episode, we cover 4 different segments. It's always fresh and different, and lots of fun while you get the insider info on all things Airtable. Our hosts and guests are some of the most senior experts in the Airtable community. Join us live each week on our YouTube channel every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and join our active community at BuiltOnAir.com. Before we begin, a word from our sponsor, On2Air Backups. On2Air Backups provides automated Airtable backups to your cloud storage for secure and reliable data protection. Prevent data loss and set up a secure Airtable backup system with On2Air Backups at On2Air.com. As one customer, Sarah, said, having automated Airtable backups has freed up hours of my time every other week and the fear of losing anything. Longtime customer David states, On2Air Backups might be the most critical piece of the puzzle to guard against unforeseeable disaster. It's easy to set up, and it just works. Join Sarah, David, and hundreds more Airtable users like you to protect your Airtable data with On2Air Backups. Sign up today with promo code BuiltOnAir for a 10% discount. Check them out at On2Air.com. And now let's check out today's episode and see what we built on air.
Welcome in on the BuiltOnAir podcast. Welcome back. We are in season 23, episode 6. Good to be with you all. Hope you had a great week. We've got the regular crew, Ali, Camille, myself. Good to see you guys again. So for today's show, we're going to just jump right into it. We're going to do a deep dive. Ali's going to walk us through some tips and tricks on how to maintain your base, keep it clean, find anything that might need updates, and just general meta schema maintenance and whatnot. So I don't think there was any big, actually we should announce that big hackathon, both the one that the community is running and then also Airtable is doing a live one in New York. What was the date on that? You remember the date?
I will look it up.
I think
March
19th, I think.
19th. Yeah.
So they're around the same time, actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's during.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, that one's live in New York. That one's got real cash money, $50,000 for the top winner, or maybe divided up.
It's $50,000 for the top winner, and then another $50,000 distributed in 2,000 increments for other like winners of, they call them bounties. So I think at the beginning of the day, for those who attend and want to participate, they give a prompt, and you have basically the whole day to develop a Airtable-based AI incorporated solution. And there might be specific prompts that each bounty is dedicated to, or it might just be the top so-and-so number of contestants, and then the very top gets 50,000.
Yeah. So that will keep you busy. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that, see how that goes. And we'll cheer anybody on that's going to be there. I don't plan to go to New York for that one, but if you're in the area already, that might make sense. So try it out. Awesome. Ali, let me get your screen on. There you go. Let's see what you've got.
All right. So this is just a fun thing that I've found increasingly more useful over the years that I keep finding more uses for. And I'm sure people have probably heard me talk about this. And also there's other products out there in the marketplace, such as Kavan's field list that basically does exactly what this does. This is just a script that I wrote years and years ago that I've improved upon as time has gone on. And once you've got all of this set up, no matter how you get to it, I'm going to show you some ways that I use this and how I help it clean up my data, how I use it to help clean up my data. So basically what I'm looking at right now is a table of fields, and I have a table of tables. And I've got them linked together. So on my tables table, I've got very few fields, but and it's such a funny way to talk about this data, just table of tables and table of fields. So things might get a little confusing. I'm going to try and keep it all straight. But we've got our table name and table ID. I have a field to mark whether or not the table has been deleted. I have the description of the table, which I just remembered. I think I didn't actually update my script to include that, but I will. And then I'm counting how many fields there are. And I also have a place to fill in how many records are currently on that table. And we'll talk more about that later. Then I've got just my linked fields. And I have a field that is looking at the deleted column and saying, okay, if that's filled in, what is the last modified time of that field? Because unfortunately, you can't actually access the create time or delete time, obviously, because the field would be gone, or the table would be gone, of that data. If you're using something like Martin's product that he showed 2 weeks ago, I believe now, you will capture all that data because it's happening instantaneously. So this is like a dumbed down version of his tool, which is amazing. Then I have whether it's like the create date, and I'm labeling this created on or before, because I know when I'm running this manually, the table may have been created a week ago, but I'm only capturing it today. But then the magic really happens on my fields table. And here I'm getting all of my metadata possible from each field. And that is the field name, the type, whether or not it's valid, which that's a hugely beneficial piece of information we'll talk about more. The field description, more around the metadata. We have the field ID, whether it's computed, the options, which are going to be different for each field type, and then references as well. So I'm going to get more into how all of that works in a moment. But so essentially, I'm able to look at a given field and see what other fields that field references, and then what fields are referenced by that field. So that helps me look at this list and like really determine the structure of my data. And I actually have experimented a lot with like visualizing this data and using it to build org charts and stuff like that, which has become really helpful when I'm trying to like document a process, so on and so forth. I'm going to get into a little bit more of like how I access this data, and then I'll talk about the script and then show an interface with some cool tools that are based on this data. And Dan and Camille, feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have any questions or anything. I'm going to add a new script. And just talk a little bit about how to access this data. In the API here, it's going to show you all the different things that you can access via one of these. So if you're ever curious, it should be in here. They're kind of slow to update this reference though sometimes. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. But let's say we want to just look at, let's be super, super meta, and we're going to look at this fields table here. And I can zoom in a little to make this bigger if that's helpful. And we'll just say let table equal base.get table fields. And then if I console log that, these are all of the things that I get about the table. I get the ID, the name, the description, the URL, and then fields and views that are on that table. Once upon a time, when I first wrote this big schema builder script, I included the views as an option and had a table of views, but I've since kind of ditched that ever since interfaces are a thing, because I find myself using views a lot less I'm far less dependent on views than I was before. People are
that
like,
is something, if I remember correctly, through the API is only available on the enterprise API to get the views, if I remember correctly.
From the web API, yeah. And it's still not as detailed as some of the other things. Like I'm sure Ali's about to go through what kind of info you get about each field. For views, it doesn't tell you what the filters are or its dependencies, if it's used in automations or anything like that. So Ali showed the dependencies for fields. Like a formula can reference multiple fields. Views, I mean, you're on your own. It really is. You got to do some hunting if you want to figure out if a view is important.
exactly. And that is something to note. Like another thing I wish you could get the fields that are visible on a view.
Yep.
That to me is like the number one thing that I'm interested in when I'm looking at metadata, and you just can't.
You can do that with the web API, but again, that's locked to enterprise. I've used that before. If I have to make my own query, I'm like, just copy this view.
But it doesn't, you can't get the filter anywhere as far as I'm aware.
No.
Yeah. Which is, again,
kind of critical to a view.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, the fields are far more detailed, but the views, you really just get the ID, the name, the type, like whether it's a grid or a gallery or a calendar, and then the URL, which again is formulaic, and you really don't necessarily need the URL here, but that's fine. Then the fields are really where things get interesting. So within each field, we get the ID and the name and description, just like every other object, essentially. But where things are great is within the options, and the options are different depending on your field type. But if it is a formula, it'll actually give you the formula, which is awesome. Martin showed this in his demo last week or 2 weeks ago. It shows you what the referenced field IDs are. So this is how I'm populating that field that says what fields are referenced. And long ago, before they made the change of adding the backlink for the same table linked records, I had the script also, it would like fill in the referenced field, and then it would have to loop back over everything to fill in the referenced by. And I was really excited when the backlink became a thing, because now I don't have to do that. I could cut out like a whole half of my script. But super cool. It shows you where your references are, and you can see here, like, it's because these are in the formula. Those two fields are in the formula. Then it tells you the result. In this case, that is a single line text. It might be a date. It might be a number. So that will be reflected in this result for the formula fields. There's a ton of information in here, and you kind of have to like get to know each one of these things. But if it's a single select, it'll give you their choices, which is awesome. So you can really, once you've got all of this stuff in here, use this table as like a metadata search across your base. For example, I was helping a client we're trying to deprecate mini extensions and move it on to fill out. And we did a big search across all the fields in their base to see if any formulas were referencing mini extensions, and found a bunch that we like wouldn't have been able to find with the normal search functions because it's within the formula itself. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Almost like in Excel where you can say show formula values, and then it shows all the formula. Like you could almost recreate that with this.
Exactly. So super, super helpful. But I'll get into, why don't I show actually the interface? So this base is like I've pulled it up many times on the podcast before, but it's kind of like my testing grounds, and I have a bunch of scripts and formulas saved in here. This was just one I felt comfortable being able to share on the fly, but you could apply this concept to any base. And I have this set up in so many different bases across my own workspace as well as clients. And we have different things we're doing with different reason, but essentially I can now use this as a search place. I can try and look at my tables and decide if I need to delete fields, if I have processes that I want to assign fields to, which I was actually going to show just live how I would do that. I could say, oh, I want to like plan on deleting this field, or like mark something to like research if I want to see if I actually need it. So as I'm going through this, I could be like, oh, color roll up, that's a weird named field. I probably don't need that. And if I add needed, I have a formula that is looking at this field and essentially adding up a bunch of things saying like, are there any references in this field? Does the field have the word test in the name, etc., in order to come up with a cleanup level? And I'll actually show you what that formula looks like after we are done looking at this. And then I can, if I wanted to, sort this by the cleanup level and be like, okay, here's a list of all the fields that I can now delete or look at deleting. When I click
how do you get it from the table into this or from the base into the central base?
Yes. So I'm going to show that script in a moment. Like I have a whole, I call it my schema builder. But the end result is kind of just a GUI interface of your data and being able to like take notes, audit the fields, look into things that have references, like this one will have references because it's a linked record field. And then I can click across and kind of dive into each field and just deal with it in that kind of way, which I've found really helpful. But in the base, I have this huge behemoth script that I admittedly have not optimized over the years. I barely have. I've written it. I wrote it years and years ago. I'm happy to share it with everyone. I have it on like a shared interface page that I'm happy to put in Slack, or we can put it in the show notes if you want, Dan. But so I'm not updating this regularly, and it may or may not work for you, but I use it all the time and I find it really useful. So some things that this does, let me just run it to show you. The first thing it's asking me is what I want to do. So do I want to run this to update tables and fields, just tables, or do I want to do a calculation of my file size or my record and field value counts? I'm eventually going to have one that's like, just do everything, but I haven't worked that in yet. I separated out tables and fields versus just fields or just tables in case you have a huge base with a lot of data. This might take a while to run, and a while is maybe, probably 5 minutes, but say in that 5 minutes, you leave the window and come back and it finished updating the tables, but you now want to rerun it and just do the fields to save time, you could do that. But if I say tables and fields, it's going to go through and it goes through every table in the base, and then it's showing me what has happened on it. So how many fields have been created, how many have been updated, if any have been deleted. If I go and just like add a test field here and run this again. Now on my fields table, I have one field that's been added, but if I delete it and run it again, now one field's been deleted. And I can go be super, super meta and go find that, and it's here marked as deleted, which I found super useful. I, from here, have a couple clients that that have like a report that gets sent out every week. That's like, here's all the fields that were deleted. Here's all the ones that were added, that kind of thing. Should I dive into the script now?
Sure.
Let's see. So I have started adding into this a way to create the table and the fields as well, which I actually used for this base, but it's not in my main script yet. I found it really frustrating that you can't create formula fields, which I guess I understand why, but made it a little bit difficult to finish that part up. But essentially what we're doing here is it's like the run options are what I have picked here. So it says, all right, I'm going to determine what my options are, what the user has chosen to do. And then it goes through and it does, depending on their choices, one or many things. Within each one of those things, I have tons of different things broken out, but it's basically, these are the two new things to update file sizes. First, it goes through and loops over all of my tables and it finds the ones that have been deleted. And that works by just saying, okay, what's my current list of table IDs and what's the table IDs that are on the table? And if any of them don't exist in my bases list, the current metadata, it marks it as deleted. And that flows through to the fields as well, so that all of those fields get marked as deleted. And then it does actually go through and compare the objects so that it doesn't actually update anything if there's no changes. Like it compares the JSON of the table object to table object, same with fields, to see if it needs to be updated or not. And we can get more into specifics here, but this is just a behemoth of a script.
Yeah.
But it's basically just doing all this stuff.
It's very well organized.
Thank you. I thank Kavan for that. She taught me how to write scripts in a far better way than I was doing. And it changed my script writing world. So thank you, Kavan.
This is pre-AI. So.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. I'm not
so
taking
maybe
her
touch on how are you determining the file size?
Yes, that one's a fun one.
That's for attachments?
Yes, that's for attachments. So that was inspired by a client I've been working on with. They've got a big attachments table, and we took theirs a step further, where they have a table that's literally every record basically is one or more attachments. So we are updating each of those records to be like, this is 25 megabytes, this is a gigabyte, like, etc. But in this case, this is just doing the whole field as a whole on a given table. If I make this smaller, I have this view isolating only my attachment fields. So only the ones that are still existing, so they haven't yet been deleted, and they have a type of multiple attachments. And then this, oh, that's the wrong one. Update file sizes just goes through, and it's already updated it. If I were to clear that, it finds all of my attachment fields, selects all of the records on that table that have that field filled in, and then adds up the file size and fills in the final value here. So if you're really curious, you can always see in your usage, if you go into your account page and your usage for the workspace, you could see for each base the total number of gigs that you have in that base. But if you want to know like what fields are really weighing that number down, this becomes really helpful. And that works over here. It's just looping over each attachment and saying, all right, if it has a size property, add it, just keep adding it to the size. And then it updates that one field record with the total. So that's been super helpful as well. Then the next thing I found really helpful is that record and field value counts option. I'm like, if I have a huge table and I'm really looking for things that I can delete, like I want to know what's empty, like how many truly just empty fields do I have, that this has become really helpful for that. And what happens with it, actually, I think I can run this again to fill out the rest of this here. We'll just do all tables. And I have this broken out into just one table or all, because if you have a huge base, this part can like just grind to a halt, because you have to select every record and every field to be able to do this. So this is a small base. It'll work well. I'm sure I could find a way to optimize it later for bigger bases, but I haven't gotten that far yet. And once it's done, there we go. So this all just populated with data. And what's happening here is on the tables table, I have a field for how many records there are. So when I run this part, it updates this column here. And then it goes through each field and just puts in how many records have a value for that field into this column. And then I'm calculating the percent filled. So based off of that number of records, if that's filled in, how many records with values out of that total are filled in. Then all of that kind of amalgamates into one big formula that I have here called cleanup level. And I wish I had a messier base to demo this with. I was really looking for a good one that would be client facing. But let's look at this formula. And you could really customize this to whatever you want, of course. This is really just things that like based on my own habits in a base, but there's some things that are universal, of course. For example, I use this emoji a lot. If I know I want to delete a field, I might put that in the name. That's actually what this line is referencing. Or I might, in that development plan column I was talking about, say, I'm definitely going to delete this, and that will affect my cleanup level as well, and put that higher on the list. Again, it might say, do I need this or not? I want that to affect my cleanup level. This one is more universal. If it ends in a number, if the field ends in a number, then it likely might be added by mistake, or you should be renaming it. Except for, in my case, I have a lot of fields that end in last 4, and I don't want that to affect my cleanup level, because I want that to be allowed. So I've added that into the formula just so it doesn't trigger off that. But for example, if let's filter this by ends in a number. So field name, table 13, etc., or like V1. You might have, like, if you have a table with multiple links to a different table, on that other table, you might have like colors 2, colors 3, etc. So this would capture all of those.
Yep.
Which I find really useful. There's also, in that same vein, down here, if I find that the field name, the field type is single line text, and it includes from, like this, in the field name, like it's likely been a lookup field like, or I guess it should be lowercase in that function, but yeah, like this, lower. But that would, if I had deleted this linked field, this would turn into a single line text field and no longer relevant. So that's what that's trying to capture as well.
Yeah,
Bunch.
good.
Absolutely. I've found it.
Is there a way to detect if the linking went away? You know, if you unlink it and you got the dingling?
Yes, I have. That is, this is valid is false. That, let me show you. Let's add a linked field to wherever and look up from here. You know what? I'm wondering, that formula I think is set up incorrectly, because this would not be a type of single line text after, but regardless, we'll figure this out together. So if I delete that field for tasks after I have a lookup from it, that should break this field, but it still is a type of lookup. But that would now become no longer valid. So if I update all of my fields and say, or is valid is false, I have that field on this list now as invalid. I have another script that I sometimes run that's just called my broken field report. That do I have it over here? Let's see. Too many testing things in this script, in this space. Yeah, here. So this just shows me very much just plug and play. Doesn't update anything. It just looks to see what's valid and what's not. So that becomes really useful to find anything that's broken. What I was actually considering doing is trying to do some creative linking to say, I could figure out what my table names are. And if I have any fields that are named the same as a table that are not multiple record links, that should trigger something off as well. So you can imagine getting really creative with all of these things, trying to like really manage your data. One last thing while we're here that I'll touch on is this description thing. And I really, now that interfaces exist, I wish you could update descriptions with the automation step, but you can't. You can only do it in the extension. But say you want to add field descriptions, and now you could even use AI to do this as well and make this even faster. But if I'm like, I want to just look at my list of fields and add descriptions here and not actually go to all the tables and find them and right click and say edit description and blah, blah, blah. I want to just say, you know, hey, new description can go here. And I'm going to click this button and it opens up this script. And it's like, do you want to set this to the field description? I say yes. And maybe because this is broken, doesn't show it. No, there we go. It worked. It did update, but it's overridden by the broken button.
Cool.
So that's been really helpful too.
So that one, is that the only, how much of this could be run through an automation script? Is that the only one that couldn't?
This is the only one that could not. Except for the building of the tables as well. That one couldn't. But
yeah,
the
automation scripts can't modify schema at all.
But the only other thing I've noticed because I have started working on translating this extension script into an automation. When I first started working on it, it was at the 30-second script limit. So now that we're at 180, I'm like, it'll probably work now. That'll be great. But I have it broken up into multiple steps, but either way. The thing I found interesting is that the options field, like the options data point or parameter, is different in the automation script versus the field script or the extension. Cool. It's a little frustrating. Like, I think it's for single selects. If I go, let's just try and look at it under here. I don't care what the trigger is. I just want to run a script, but it probably won't. Oh, maybe it'll let me. We'll say field equal table.getField deleted. We'll see what these options are here. Let's see, maybe it wasn't, because that looks the same to me.
Yeah, it's this. Those should be the same parameters.
Can't remember what the field type was, but I have run into some weird issues around that, as well as I noticed the other day, buttons, the button field type, such as that set description button that I was showing earlier, this one, the options are wacky. It just like says no and doesn't actually give you the formula. I was having a lot of trouble with that. So it doesn't, if this were referencing a formula and like to open a URL, I'm not able to get that with the metadata. Which was really weird.
It is weird because in interfaces, you could use a button as a link. Like it knows if that's what the button is supposed to do, it knows to just pull the URL out of it. So the return type not being accessible is pretty strange.
Yeah, it was very strange. Like if I do a test button and then let's just say type is button. And let's run this for everything. See, options, no. It just has nothing.
They didn't hide its configuration under some bespoke parameter, did they?
There is a URL parameter, but I believe even that I didn't get. Let's see. I literally just started looking at this a couple days ago because it was interesting here. No, that's not the actual data. That's the map of what I created. Yeah, it's really odd. In the API, it says, that would be button field, I guess. No, make this full screen. Where's the cell right? That's not what I want here. No, this is running from a button field. That's runs. I think I went to the right place to begin with, I think. Cell read.
So there it says URL.
But the actions a button can do include open Page Designer and run a script and open a different extension. So it looks like if it's a URL, great. If it's not, well, no, I guess it says the URL of the extension that the button opens. So I guess technically they're all URLs. And then Page Designer and certain other ones are like have a specific under the hood coding that knows what to do if you've clicked on a button to open it up.
Exactly. Like, but I don't think that even shows up here. See, options, no. Like, that's not even, like, the documentation doesn't even have it right.
Right.
Like,
And there's no URL.
yeah, I don't have label or URL.
Yeah.
Airtable. Come on now. What are you doing?
I got really frustrated because I was like, wait, I know this button. It was that mini extensions example. Like, I knew the button opened a mini extensions URL, but it wasn't showing up when I searched for it in my table. And then I was like, oh, it's not even in the metadata either.
Yeah.
So that's a gotcha. That's definitely a potential gotcha. Everything I should say with this comes with a grain of salt because A, I'm not updating this automatically. So the data on my interface, I'm showing the last time I updated it, right? But it's going to be out of date unless you're running it immediately before you look at it. Then this doesn't pick up on all dependencies. Like, just because I see that this has a few references, I can only get what I get from the metadata in the script, which, as we just saw, is not always even accurate in itself. So you should always look at the native dependency checker before you delete something, which of course will come up if you try to delete something that isn't deletable. Unless you accidentally check the box to mute that alert, which I don't recommend doing.
I only do it in the shortest interval, I think, is an hour. If I know I'm doing a lot of base cleanup and I've already done my due diligence, I'll turn it off for the hour, but I don't foresee me ever doing it longer than that, just in case.
Yeah, for sure. So now I might have misfollowed the metadata dashboard. Is that just for a single base, or are you collecting all of your bases into there?
It's just for a single base.
Okay.
Like,
so it'd be cool, yeah, if you pushed all the data from all your bases into a centralized dashboard.
You could make a component that has the table of table and table of fields, and maybe even the extension too. I don't know. So that everything is nice and uniform, and then sync all of those down into one source. Assuming it's fewer than 20?
I don't think extensions go into a managed component.
Well, here's to hoping that you can convert it into an automation script then.
Yeah. Yeah, if you did, the pushing you could do all through automations. That is a good idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be really
Run it on the schedule.
One thing I've found frustrating that makes me think of is that there's nothing in the field metadata or the table metadata to indicate whether it's synced or not, which is frustrating.
That's a pretty big weakness, I think, in all of their APIs. It is very important to know if a table is synced from somewhere or is syncing to somewhere, and you got to go hunting if you want that information. And that's a pretty big dependency that's just very difficult to understand without really looking through it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, the way, I think I mentioned this on the other one, is except you couldn't create a field automatically. But if you create a source field, then it would tell you where the source came from.
Yeah.
So if you you could try to create a source field on every table, and only the ones that are synced would allow it, I would guess. But I don't think you can create it automatically because it's a computed field. Yeah.
I think if you add a second source to a synced table and then get rid of it, you'll have the synced source field will appear on its own, or you could add a button field where the action is open
that's
original record.
Thinking,
yeah. That is, again, I don't think you could do it automatically, but that's the more straightforward thing. And it's nice that the button is grayed out if the sync source was disappeared, or if that record was deleted or filtered out, so it doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
But yeah, otherwise it's kind of rough going to really get that difference.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. No, this is super powerful. It's actually I might share something with you guys offline on some stuff I'm working on, but
Awesome.
yeah, so this is cool. This is definitely useful if you've got a base of any size and trying to stay on top of it, especially if you've got multiple cooks in the kitchen.
Yep.
Dealing with it. It would be nice to know who last modified the field schema.
Once again, not available in the API for reasons unknown.
But that was the one feature that is available in the webhook API. And that's like the one cool thing about the webhook API. Yeah.
One of these days we'll have a consistent sort of, if it's available and there is an API for it, it's available in all those APIs. That's where I would love to see us going. But yeah, Allie, earlier you touched on a pain point of like, if you have two tables that link back and forth between each other several times, colors 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like undescriptive names. Or for me, I had an instance where I just had one link field between two tables and several lookups from that linked relationship, and they all come in with from whatever the table name is by default as the naming convention. Going back and renaming them, not easy. Sneak peek into my thing next week. I built a script that helps you quickly rename those, but starting with this, you'd be able to see that pattern of like, oh, I have all of these fields that probably could use some cleanup.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And I actually ran into some issues around that with I was updating my schema thing last night to try and create that backlink on the table and then go and change the name from field, etc. And it was weird. It wouldn't access it. Like it just kept saying that field doesn't exist, even though it was just created and I was using the same ID. It was really weird. But I would love to look at that more later. But
one question I had going back to our sync, if you have a synced table coming in and like a text field is not editable because it's synced and it's not configured for editable, would the is computed be true or false?
It's false.
It'll still be false because it's a single text field.
I think it's a field permission under the hood that's preventing you from editing, and the only person who's allowed to edit is table sync versus literally nothing can change it, which is where calculated is.
And the field permissions don't come through in the options or anything.
Right.
Yeah. Once again, I would love to be able to see the user IDs or group IDs that have the ability to edit a field or to add or delete records in a table permissions. Inaccessible.
Yeah. It's so frustrating.
Yep.
This last thing I was just showing is something I have set up in other bases as well, where if I have like groups of fields I want to, assign to a process, and I would probably do this as a table of processes, but just for, sake of time. It's really cool if you set it up to be like, all right, anything I mark as this process or anything that is referencing it, that like I look up this field based on the referenced fields or referenced by fields, excuse me. Things get so confusing. But what's cool is like if I start adding more to that, more things should show up. Of course, this is not the right choice because that's where this tree ends. But basically, if I clear them all out, where do I know has a ton of stuff. Be like the table ID. Like if I just mark that one field. Okay, bad example. But basically, it's really helpful. It'll be like, oh, that I've sometimes I have it look up like over and over and over again, so I can get the entire tree of like just this one field and where it's referenced. It can be really interesting to like see your data in that way.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Ellie. Very good stuff. And thank you all for joining in, and we will see you next week. Have a good week.
Thank you for joining today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our sponsor, OntoAir Backups, automated backups for Airtable. We'll see you next time on the Built on Air podcast.